Now, the last couple of weeks we've been speaking about football boots and the designs behind them. Myself and Colin Bouygues have run through the likes of the Adidas Predator, the Adidas F50s, but now we decided to get some actual expertise. Con O'Brien, formerly of Puma, designer of Aguero's boots in 2015, the famous Aguero boots, 5 goals he scored in them against Newcastle in 2015. Con, thanks very much for joining us.
No problem. How are you?
I'm not so bad. Yourself?
Very good. Thanks.
So you're currently in Holland at the minute. You're not with Puma anymore. You're gone freelance. So what are you designing these days?
So at the moment I'm doing quite a variety of stuff. I'm doing some clothing lines, doing regular graphic design, trying to do a bit of everything, mural design.
How does a man from Cork go from basically doing graffiti on walls around Cork, doing graffiti in his bedroom walls, to designing boots for Sergio Aguero?
Yeah, that's still something I'm asking myself to this day. It was pretty crazy. I was studying in CIT doing visual communications, a graphic design course, and actually dropped out halfway through the course because I wanted to focus more on my painting. And luckily enough, I saw this position online. I only applied actually almost as a joke, applied and kind of forgot about it. And then when I was on holidays, got a message saying that, they were interested, which was, definitely a big shock, but fantastic crack.
So a lot of people aren't familiar with your story here in Ireland, which is quite a pity because it's a great story. So how did you first of all get into art and sort of the designing of clothing lines, of football boots? Where did the love of art start?
Well, it actually started, almost like any kid in school when I was doodling, but I kind of began to notice as the years went on that I was certainly taking that doodling to a very different level. I was putting an extensive amount of time in it because I'm actually quite heavily dyslexic, so school I wasn't fantastic in, so it was kind of my outlet, something to kind of get away from the work and get away from the stress. I put it into sketching, and as I kind of knew my sketches were growing and growing, I thought, hold on, maybe I can actually do something, with this as a career. I never thought it'd be possible to be able to draw every day, which was definitely always a background dream.
Yeah, and without going off on too much of a tangent about this, you mentioned that you're dyslexic there and that art was sort of your outlet. Would you like to see in Ireland some sort of educational shift that people learn to their strengths rather than learning based on a subject?
Definitely, and I think I certainly have noticed myself since I started primary school, it's already improving. It's being recognised a lot more, and those students are being definitely helped a lot more, as well as a lot of alternative career choices are opening up now. So for sure, I definitely like to see it going more and more that direction. But I think it's already on a good gradual incline. So
you get the call from Puma when you're on holidays in Barcelona, I think.
Yes.
You do an initial Skype interview, a little bit like this. So what are they looking for, did they say?
Thankfully, because they were actually looking for someone with a background in something like murals or graffiti, that they wanted something with, a more unique twist, which I think was a very good idea. They definitely took a chance on me. It was their first time going for someone with this background. Typically it's someone who's been studying for, 5+ years of a very rudimental way of coming up with a design. So this kind of seemed to give them a more unique edge.
And eventually you are flown out to Nuremberg in Germany. You get the job and you're working as a graphic designer for Puma, is it?
Yes. Yeah.
So what would your day-to-day working environment be then?
Actually, just quickly to touch on for that interview itself, I thought it's a funny one to share. I didn't know, because I was new to all of this of a creative job, and I showed up in a full, almost tuxedo suit, which was, and I got there and they're all dressed in tracksuits. So that had a good start for me. But sorry, what was the question again?
What would your day-to-day working job be when you, first of all, when you started with Puma? What was it like working in that kind of environment?
Definitely very stressful at the beginning. I thought initially when I got the job, I was so surprised. I thought, okay, maybe I work in a big graphics team that someday I do something that might end up on the packaging. And in my first week, I got a walk around and was told that, okay, you're doing the graphic designs for everything, all the boots, all the equipment, everything. So it was for sure very stressful, but, such a laugh that I could actually realize that I can just sketch every day. So it'd start off, with a bit of research in the morning, and then kind of hit your peak of your day about 12 o'clock when you're really working on execution. But always brilliant crack, just getting to constantly research football and, look into different elements of graphic design myself and just sketch all day.
How much creative freedom do you have with this? Is it whatever you draw, they're going to stick on a T-shirt or a shin guard or a football boot, or is there different layers that have to go into this kind of thing?
Yeah, I wish it was that simple for sure, but with good reason it's not. So yeah, you have a lot of different stages, to pass. You're showing a lot of different people. Surprisingly, they do give you a crazy amount of creative freedom, but just once you can back it up, with a good story of why you're doing what you're doing. I was frustrated at the start that I thought, hey, a good sketch is a good design is a good design. It should sell off its own merit. And, I quickly realized that that's not the case. You got the whole marketing, aspect to look at. So taught me a lot for sure.
Do you work with the materials as well? Are you part of that discussion, or is that more of a product placement kind of thing where you design what's going on the boot and they design what kind of materials it's going to be made out of? Because I know Puma, they put a big emphasis on the weight of the boot, the different kind of players that are going to be wearing them. So are you involved in those discussions as well, or is that something that's left to another team?
No, that was also my role. So I was graphics, color and material designer. So all three of those elements, you kind of really had to make sure that my graphic would work together seamlessly with the material, that they wouldn't be, so separated. So that the whole story of the boot, as you see in football boots these days, they're getting a lot more advanced than they were back in the day. The marketing concepts around them are a lot more advanced. So yeah, I really had to take care of the material side, color side, the graphic side, all of it really. But yeah, we had a small enough team, so everyone had a very keen eye on every element.
Yeah, and myself and Colin Buig have been chatting about the origins of different boots over the last couple of weeks, and we're discussed the different type of players that might wear a different type of boot. So what kind of materials suit a player who wants a bit of speed added to his game, or what's the difference between that and a player who wants a bit of power? Because it's hard to distinguish whether it's all a marketing scheme to sell different types of boots, but ultimately they do the exact same thing. What amount of research goes into the different designing so that you get a different outcome with the boot?
It's a good question. So quite a lot of research went in. So at the kind of prototype stage, well, initially we would research certain types of players. Your strikers, your sprinters, your defenders, and exactly as you asked there, what do they need? Do they need better traction, with the style pattern? Do they need lighter materials? Do they need heavier materials for more protection, or, more power, for example, a centre-back or something? And then after we got that, we would break down the materials, try them all at different stages of prototyping, and then get the players, the top athletes, the Griezmanns, the Agueros, to try them out and get feedback like, okay, is this giving you better traction? Is it not? And again, work that feedback back in. So it's definitely a lot of research that goes in, not just the marketing ploy, thankfully. Yeah,
and you mentioned a couple of big names there. You just dropped them in as if they're nothing. So Antoine Griezmann, Sergio Aguero, Buffon, I could name others, but they're top quality footballers, world stars. How closely were you working with them?
Thankfully, very close. I had a lucky position, so I was mainly working on the special editions, and I got to work on the players packs, so the individual packs. And they actually flew me out to Griezmann's house in Madrid, which was incredible.
Decent enough house?
Oh, unbelievable! Surprisingly, no goals. He has a basketball pitch in the garden, but no goals.
Paul Pogba wasn't just sitting on the couch playing the Xbox when you were there, was he?
I wish. But yeah, I got to spend the day with him doing the sketches for his boot, and you get to know them quite well. They're very funny to work with, as you'd imagine. So
I know the likes of Griezmann's big into his fashion. How much of an input does he have in the design that goes into his boot?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. So it kind of varies from player to player, but him specifically, he wanted a lot. He was a very creative guy, which is, it makes my job a lot easier if they come with a lot of their own ideas. One question he actually asked me was, could he make his studs light up when he runs? Which I was surprised at. It's kind of like kids' shoes. I was like, technically maybe, but it's pretty weird of you to ask.
And the likes of Aguero, would he have been the same? I'm not sure he speaks too good of English, so what's it kind of like working with these world stars that may not have English as the first language?
Yeah, thankfully they have that all kind of set up to help me with that process. So they would have translators or their managers. We could often be in contact with them quite easily, or I would send out a questionnaire and, it could be translated to him and he'll fill in the questions and I can get it back that way. So it's still, I can get all of his story, all of the stuff, the custom elements he wants on the shoe. So yeah, you end up with a much better product that way for sure.
How long a process is that? So from meeting the player, discussing the design, to actually seeing that boot on a football pitch, how long is that process usually?
It's about, I'm not sure exactly, but I think it was roughly 18 months, could be almost this. So it's kind of difficult sometimes because you're working so far in advance. You're also hoping that the competition, competitor brands don't come out with something very similar to yours like a month before the drop. A lot of people would say, oh, you copied this, you copied that, whereas it was done almost a year in advance.
And I actually meant to ask this question when I was talking about Griezmann as well. What's the maddest design someone has asked you to try get into a football boot? I presume it is those light up studs.
That's probably one of them, but you'd be surprised. I got a lot of very strange requests. I'd say that's definitely up there. I had one pretty crazy story that Aguero wanted on his boots.
You can share it with us.
His entire life story. I sent off a questionnaire. I expected a few words reply. Like, for example, Balotelli just handed back the same questionnaire blank. So some of them, don't get involved too much. But Aguero, I get this 10-page document of everything he wanted. And I was kind of like, geez, thanks for you took so much time, but I only have this size of a space to print all of that. But I think the weirdest one is the light up studs for sure.
You weren't behind Balotelli's boots when he had the newspaper articles.
No, that was just before I came in. That was really cool, that one.
So when a player comes to you with a big line of things like that, how plausible is it for you to actually get those onto the boots? Or is that something that Puma have some sort of a say in, that if Aguero comes and wants this mad design, that you design it but it may not be marketable? Where's the tension there? Who wins that argument?
Yeah, that's for sure. There was a lot of back and forth with it because, of course, a lot of the players will come up with stuff that you're kind of like, geez, man, it's nice and very personal, but we can't sell that. So there is, you definitely have to meet in the middle. Of course, the players, want all of what they want on the shoe, which is fair enough. But it's my job then it was my job to try and nail it down to find the balance between what tells the full story and what looks good. So it was 50-50 who won the cases here and there, But again, it was mainly down to I just had to squeeze in as much as I could and make it look very good.
Yeah, and as well as Aguero and Griezmann, you also spent a day with Thierry Henry, who I believe you're a big fan of.
Yes, yeah.
What was that like?
That was fantastic. It was funny actually. I was still setting up a presentation for him at the Arsenal training ground, and I was really in a rush, because we had to set up the room and all of this other stuff. And my boss was there, tapped me on the shoulder, and I was almost finished. I was kind of turning around to be like, "Give us a chance," I'm almost finished the presentation. I turned around and it's Thierry Henry looking for a handshake, and all I could think of was like, "Is that the hand that the infamous handball?"
Oh.
Yeah, but it wasn't. But it was fantastic meeting him. Very sound guy. Just very bizarre. Just standing there with him in the room, cool as a cucumber he is.
So what exactly were you doing with Henri at that stage? Were you helping him design a brand of items coming out?
He was just overlooking some of because he was working with Arsenal at the time. And we would do some prototyping with a lot of different clubs, and he was there at the time, so I wanted to get his early feedback on some of the design work as well as, the youngsters. It's kind of good to have a wide scope. Okay,
and outside of football boots, would you have had a hand in designing the likes of Puma football shirts as well?
The Yeah, a lot of my friends were working in the apparel team. They sat very close to us, so you'd always have a look. I've actually had the chance just before I left to design some national kits that might be featured in the World Cup, but I can't say which ones at the moment. Hopefully I can next time.
Well, you don't work for Puma anymore, so you can tell us all now. You can reveal all their secrets, all the new and up and coming boots and shirts.
I tell you, and they've probably dropped it in the meantime.
Since you started designing clothing and boots, what's been the biggest change in the style? Because something I would have noticed, especially wearing football boots, is that we've gone from the transition of colourful, bright yellow, orange, all these colours on the boots, to back to the basics of all black and the socks. So would you have been following trends like that when you were working for Puma as well?
Oh, all the time. Every morning you're checking to see what's going on with the competitors. You see what's coming in the future. That was a definite all-day kind of thing that was in the back of your mind. You're constantly trying to keep up with, what will be next, how you can top the competition.
And why do you think that is the change? Why do you think people are starting to move back towards the All Blacks?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I think a lot of these neon flashy colours just seem to kind of run its course. I think as well it just could be, trying to find again something, different in the market that stands against all of that. And at the end of the day, all black boots like the old Puma Kings, a lot of stuff we see in the GA as well. It's just a classic and it always works.
Yeah. And what's coming up in the future for yourself? Are you staying put in Holland for a while, or have you anything coming out that we should be aware of?
I will be staying here for a while, continue on the freelance. I have some interesting work done in collaboration with Paul Galvin, actually, so hopefully you can see some stuff coming out soon. But bar that, I'm just going to keep on painting, keep on practicing, and try and move on to bigger and better things. And
if people want to see any of your work, where do they go? Where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at kone.one. I also have an online portfolio on Behance at Con O'Brien. There would be the main places to catch most of my work.
Con, thanks very much for taking the call.
Thank you for having me.
Cheers.
Pleasure.